Hi there, welcome to the Anytype for Beginners course. This is part 1 basics, and in this video, we'll be going over installation and sync, pin and settings, app UI tour, basic terms, customizing pages, and using links. Feel free to use the timestamps below for skipping ahead. In this lesson, we'll go over how to install and the sync options for Anytype. This course will be covering just the desktop app. Anytype offers 3 different versions, Mac, Windows, and Linux. They also have mobile applications for both iOS and Android. However, think of the mobile apps as more of a complementary app than a full-featured version. Once you have the app installed on your computer and you open it, you will see the login page. In the top right corner, there is a small gear icon. Click on that and we'll go over some of the options available there. This is where you can select the network you want to connect to or choose not to connect to. The first option is the Anytype network. This allows you to have an encrypted, secure backup of all your data. You would use this over the internet so that you can synchronize the content from your desktop with another device, whether it's another desktop or your mobile phone. The second option is called local only. This is for working 100% offline with Anytype. It can also be used if you have a local network, which could mean computers physically connected by cables or connected via a local Wi-Fi network at home or in a small organization. One word of caution is that switching back and forth between these modes can cause issues. So in the Anytype documentation, which I will link down below, they recommend creating a brand new vault if you prefer working in local only mode. The last option is self-hosted, which is a privately hosted network. Now there aren't many tutorials yet on this option, so I myself have not really tried this out. You can choose your interface language here in the screen as well. I have mine set to English US. You can also choose where to save your vault data on your local computer. For example, on a Mac, the default location is under your user's library folder within application support and then Anytype. You can change that folder if you desire, and you can pick a different location. On the main login screen, select New Vault. Next, choose Get My Key. The key is a long 12-word passphrase that you will use for your login. You can click Show My Key to view it. Unfortunately, you can't edit this passphrase to something more memorable. It's automatically generated from your local device. So it's very important to keep this key secure because Anytype does not have a password reset option. If you lose this passphrase, you won't be able to log in to Anytype again. During onboarding, you'll be asked to set your name. You can change this later if you decide you don't like the username that you initially picked. Then, once you enter your name, you will enter the vault. Now that you've entered your vault, we're going to head over to our vault settings, which is down here in the lower left corner, and we're going to look at the PIN code. So the PIN code is just a lock screen for your Anytype app. It's 6 digits, numbers only, and it also protects your login key passphrase. So let's turn this on and take a look at what happens. You have to enter it twice, and then you'll get some more options. So here you can change how soon the PIN lock screen is enabled, and then you can update or turn your PIN code off. And then when we go over here to the login key, we can see that this is where your very long passphrase is stored. If I click on it, it's actually going to ask me to enter my PIN before it shows it to me. So just another layer of security. And as well as down here, this is a QR code. So if I click on here, it's still going to say enter PIN. So this one you can use if you're planning to sync between a mobile device and your desktop device. You just point your camera at this QR code and it will log you in instead of having to enter your very long passphrase. Okay, so since we are in settings, let's take a look at some of the other options that we have here. Over in membership, if I select this, you're probably on the forever free plan. when you first start using Anytype. Then you can upgrade if you want to the paid plans, which include some different things like a domain name and additional storage space on the Anytype servers. Down here in the data management section, we've got local storage, and this is where you can change where your data is being stored on your local device, as well as you can put your files into the backup storage if you don't want them stored on your laptop. All right, so back over here to spaces. This will show you all the spaces that you have in your Anytype vault and who is the owner. If like some of these, like I'm part of the Any authors, I'm just an editor, I'm not the owner, and it will tell you if it's active on the Anytype network. So up here you can see sync status, and right here the little smiley face guy says I am using the Anytype network, so it's backing up to the storage. If you are using a local network, this should not be green. And then let's take a look down here. So my sites, if you have any published pages, like I have some pages that are published, it will tell you when it's published and what size it is. So these sites are basically static HTML pages, and they're available over the internet. They're public. So it's, if you wanted to use Anytype as a blog, you could do it this way. I'm not super familiar with API keys, so I'm not going to go over that. And then let's go up here to our preferences under application, and here you can change your light mode, dark mode preferences, as well as we've got some options for your editor. And then we also have some other appearance related options dealing with how your menus and widgets show up in the app. Back up here to language and region, we've got our languages here, as well as your date and time formats, and also which day of the week that you want your calendar to start on. So that's everything in your vault settings. So I'm in my workspace, and right here, if you click on the title of your space, you will have another set of settings. So it can be confusing because there's two different places. There is your vault settings, think of that as your account level, and then your space settings, which are here. Okay, so these are the space settings, and I will show you this right now, but it's best to come back to this later. But just know, here are some of the things you can change. This is dealing with your space preferences, what your homepage will be whenever you open up your app. We've also got the option to invite members, so if you want to collaborate with people in your space. Remote storage is if you're using, again, the Anytype servers to offload some of your files and store them there for backup. Your bin here, you can also look at your trash can. And then we've got some options for your object types, properties, and then import and export types. So really quickly, I'll just head over to the import. So you can see in this course, I'm actually just going to go over how to build a course from scratch. But if you have data stored in other places, you can import it. However, I do want to say the way that Anytype is set up is not the same as all these other apps. So just use caution when you're trying to import new data. I suggest definitely put it in a new space, which you can create a new space and just do some testing on small portions of data before you bring in something big, because it can get messy very quickly. Welcome to your Anytype space. Let's do a quick tour of the layout of the app. So over in the far left corner, we have what's called the Spaces sidebar or Spaces panel. If you just have one space, you'll just have one square right here, but I have several, so this will just kind of fill up the more spaces that you have. This little plus icon is where you add more spaces. And then right below that is your profile icon. So that is your vault settings. Now it can be confused for this right here, but this has to do with this panel on this side called the widget panel, and it's really more of a shortcuts area. So right here at the very top, we've got our space, and so if you select the title of your space, you'll get your space settings. And then right here, we've got our search bar. And then this is called all objects. And so this is just another way you can find content in your space. It's organized by pages, lists, media, bookmarks, and files. And then you can sort it different ways, so it's defaulted to the last modified date. And then we also have a shortcut for inviting new members. Now right here, you'll see this came with our space, the Pages widget. And if I select it, it will take me to the Pages type. Now, this will make more sense once we go over the terminology in Anytype, but just know you can add more options here. Go down to the bottom here where it says Add Widget, and we have a lot of different default types that are already in Anytype, as well as some other options for pinned, which is like favorites. So if I enable pinned, you'll see this is a favorite page, and up in the top right corner here, you'll see a pin icon, so you can select that. So now we've got pages and we've got pinned. Typically, I want this a little bit higher, so you can move that up. And then if you decide you don't want it, that's when you would enable the settings down here, and then you can just delete it that way. And then down here, while we're in the widgets panel still, we've got our help icon. So that's where you can find out what the latest features are in this version, as well as some keyboard shortcuts and then links to various help documents and the community. Then as we get into this main screen, we've got forward and backward navigation. And then this flower guide is actually your graph view, which again will make sense when we go over it later. Right here, if you also click here, you can also get your search bar option. And then we've got our pinned, and then there's some options here for a menu in the far right under the 3 dots. Now the menu will change depending on what you actually have open. So right now you can see it looks like this, but if I select something else and I go up here to the menu, it has a lot more options, as well as 2 more menu items here. So we've got a share function, which would allow you to publish to the web. And we've got this bulleted list, which pops out with a properties sidebar, allowing you to add more attributes to this specific object. Now to collapse this, you will have to press the properties again to close that. And that's it for the tour. So check out the next video to go over more of the basics within Anytype. In this lesson, we'll go over some basic Anytype terminology. First up, we have the Anytype Vault, which is what you just installed. Think of the vault as your house. It's locked and has a key, and it is the largest container for all of your things. The next level down is what we call spaces. Now, spaces are just like rooms within the larger house. Spaces are important because you want to think about whether they are private, so just you, or if they are going to be shared, which means you're collaborating with other people. Next are objects. Think of objects as furniture inside of a room. An object lives inside of a space, and a space lives inside of your vault. Every object has a type. So similar to how you organize your files on a desktop, you might have PDF, Word doc, images. These are all different object types. It's basically a first level category for your items. Now with types, we also have something called properties. Properties describe your item further. They act as a second level category. For example, if you have books as a type, you could use properties to describe the book as fiction or nonfiction. You could also go a step deeper and specify the genre within fiction, such as fantasy or mystery. Think of properties as ways to describe something, like columns in a spreadsheet that come after that first column that describes your thing. Since everything in Anytype is an object, you can even use an object as a relation property. Now this will end up working like a hyperlink. So it will just take you from one object to another. Now in this example, each book is an object with its own page. The book category and genre are text values, but the author property is an object itself, so it acts just like a hyperlink. Now let's talk about lists. Currently, lists in Anytype are split into 2 different types. We have queries, which were formerly called sets, and we have collections. Collections are similar to folders. They group objects that you purposely add into them. But unlike desktop folders, collections aren't containers in the traditional sense. On your desktop, a file cannot be in two different folders. So it can't be in both March and February. You essentially have to make a copy of it. So one copy is in February and then another one is in March. So if you edit one copy in February, it's not going to update the one that's inside the March folder. However, in Anytype, because collections are groupings, an object can belong to multiple collections. So if you edit the object in one collection, it updates everywhere else that it appears. So this offers a lot of flexibility that desktop folders really don't provide. Now, another type of list is called a query, which is a search for something very specific based on one characteristic. For example, all items modified in the last week. That is a characteristic. Queries pull information from your entire space and they display the results in a list format. You can think of queries as permanent saved searches or permanent filters. Now, instead of typing a keyword search every time, you might have a query for all poems, and you can always return to that filtered view. Finally, the graph view is a visual representation of all objects in your space. It looks like a spoken wheel mind map, showing how everything connects in a visual way. In this lesson, we'll go over the different ways you can customize a page. So first of all, let me show you how to create a new page. So you can either go to here where it says pages if you have this in your sidebar, and you can select the plus button, which creates a new object. I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 there so you can see it. The second way you can create a page is to hover over here. This is the quick add icon. So if you select this, it also creates a page, but this is actually customizable. So if you decide you want a different type of default object, you can change that in your space settings. So let me just label this one 2 for now so that we can see the difference in those. And then there's 2 other ways you can use a keyboard shortcut, which if you hover over this arrow, you can see what the keyboard shortcuts are for creating a new object. And if you select this arrow, you do have the option to create different types. So again, we'll get into types a little bit later, but you can also create a new page right from here. So we've also got page number 3 there. All right, so let me go back to page number 1 and let's collapse the screen so that we can have it full width. This type has 2 templates. So if I select this, these came with the default new space. So if I click on this, I have a to-do list and it has switched over. Now there's this icon here, which is a check mark, and then it put in a to-do list here at the bottom. And so the pages are built on smaller elements called blocks. And you can see that it is a block. If you hover to the left, you'll see 3 dots. And you can click and drag and just move it down to rearrange the order of your text. That is easy to do. If you want it all to be on one block, you can simply use the keyboard shortcut Shift and Enter or Shift and Return, and it will stay with one big block. So you can see there, we kept going with just this block. And so let me get rid of these, and then let me actually highlight the to-do. So if you highlight the text, you will get a pop-up toolbar, which we are used to seeing in a word processor. So here you can choose from the different styles of formatting, as well as links and code. If you're using computer languages, you can also change the color of the text and the background color. So I'll just show you really quickly. Now it is teal. On the dark mode, it's not as vibrant as it is on the light mode. And if you want to undo this, you can also use the keyboard shortcut Command Z to undo an action. All right, now let's head up to the header here. You can see that there is an icon, it's an emoji. You can choose anything from here. You can also upload your own emoji. And then once you have uploaded some images, they will show up in your library so that you can reuse them in other places. Add a cover basically puts a giant banner across your page. So you can choose from different colors, or you can choose from a set of free stock photos through Unsplash. I do have my screen zoomed in, so it does look quite big. Use covers with caution because they're not really adjustable at this time. You can reposition them somewhat, and then you can like zoom in, but the space that it takes up is not really adjustable. So let me cancel out of that. And then if you don't like it, you can always just remove if you don't want that picture. And then we can see there's also add description. Now this is just a small summary that goes underneath the title of your object. I'm going to hide it because I don't have a description for this page. And then we have another icon right here. And this one allows you to set the layout width and the header position. Now I will caution you on doing it here because let's just try it out. If I change the setting here, I now get this little red dot, and the red dot says this object has layout settings that differ from the type. So it's basically saying you're only editing this individual page, and future pages won't have this same setting. Now, if we want to have consistency, we're going to have to do that on the type level, which will make a little more sense once we get into the properties panel. So hang on to that for just a second. Let me reset this to the default. Okay, so again, working with pages, we have some other options that I'm going to go over quickly. So if you put a backslash here, you will have a new menu that has different options for you regarding the formatting of your text. We've got toggles. We also have the option to attach files, images, media. And then we also have the option for embeds. So embeds will basically take content that lives somewhere else, such as on YouTube, and put an instance of it onto your page. However, if you are offline, this content will not show up because it's basically living on the internet and not directly on your computer. And then farther down, we have some options for a table of contents, simple tables, and then adding collections or queries inline onto your pages. You can also link to different objects within here, and then at the very bottom we've got a list of the properties. Now this will also show up over here. So again, I'm going to go over to the top right corner, and under properties we have this panel that pops out, and properties are just the characteristics that are specific to this object. Some of them are default, so like every object will always have a creation date, last edited date, created by, but you can add additional ones. These are hidden, and then they also have local ones. So if I go up to edit type, we will see that this type is called a page, and the plural name is pages, so that's what displays when you have a list of them. And then here are where the layout options are. We did see this on the page. We had the option to change the header position and the layout width here from 100 to 200%. And then the properties view, if you enable this one, it's going to be a line or a list. So right here where you see this stuff, if you change it to list, it's going to display this way and show different properties in this way. So if you're coming from Notion and you're used to seeing properties on your page, you probably want to enable list to see that on your objects. Then we also have the templates, which we saw earlier, which were kind of like up here. So we do have two templates here, and you can choose to set one as a default, so that it's always that same layout whenever you open a new page. But you can also add a brand new template here and create a customized page layout as well. And then down here, we've got all the different property types. So if you want more of them to show up here in the list view, you can take them and drag from other groups up to the header. And now you can see the creation date has populated here in the list view. So let's click save. And then to get out, again, click right here to get out of the property types panel. In this lesson, I'm going to show you some different ways to work with links on your pages. On the page, if you have your cursor here, I'm going to have a link that I want to paste here. So I'm going to put my cursor here and just paste as a link. And this just puts in the actual URL. It goes to an IMDb website. So the link shows up right here and it is clickable. Now, another way that you can add a link is to paste it again, but instead choose Create Bookmark. Now, instead of the underlined text URL, we have a little more visual card summary. And so this is also clickable as a bookmark. So if it's added as a bookmark, this is actually its own object. So if you click on it, it will open the URL, but if you right click on this card, you can choose to open as an object. So let me do that. And you can see it's a bookmark is its own page with the URL right here. So this is a nice feature if you want to kind of sort your URLs in its own list or its own database. You can make it into a bookmark. So if you decide later you want to turn it into a bookmark, you can select the dots to the left of your title and then turn it into a bookmark. So right here. So another way we can add a link is if I already have some text and I decide I want to hyperlink it somewhere else, I can select that text, highlight it, and then select the link icon in the toolbar, and it gives me the option to create a new object called Frodo, or to simply put the URL I want to hyperlink to. So let's select Create Object Frodo, and now it has created a placeholder that if I click on it, let's go to that page. This is my Frodo page. So now that I click into it, it is a permanent page. Now, if I selected any of those objects at the top, it would have changed into those types. So now you can see in this object, it has something called a backlink. And if I select this, it goes to my page number 1. So this is saying that those two things are connected, and where we can also view this when we're talking about links is in your graph view. So if I open this up, we can see that this is my original page number 1. It's got a link to my Frodo page, and it also has a link to my Lord of the Rings 2 Towers. Now, when we're referring to links and backlinks, links show up if you have put them on the page that you're writing on. When I click on Frodo, because I didn't actually write on this page, it shows up as a backlink, meaning that another page referenced Frodo, this object, and that's why it shows up as a backlink. Same goes for this bookmark. Because I referenced it on this page, it's called a link, and if I click here onto this object, we can see that it shows up as a backlink because I didn't mention page number 1 here at all. Page 1 is the one that had the original link to here. So I'm going to create one more object here so that we can look into another way to link objects. On the Frodo page, I'm going to go up to the top right, select my menu, and I can add a link to object here as well. So let me select Gandalf. And it now says Frodo's been linked to Gandalf. It does take a second or two for this to update. So now it says 2 backlinks, which means if I click on it, I can see it's now connected to both Gandalf and the number 1 note. And when I go to Gandalf, you can see that Frodo does show up right here as a link on the page. I can hover over to the left again, and we have something called preview. And if you select preview, it has preview layout. You can choose to show it as a text or a card. So let me select card and show you what that looks like. And this ends up looking like a button. Now you can change the colors on here. It is going to be a bit muted because I am in the dark mode, but if you decided you wanted to get, say, the green color, it's not as noticeable, but now it is acts like a clickable button back to my Frodo page.